Good morning, good evening, good night. Welcome back, family caregivers, agents and thrivers, to Lana's Little Things with me, Dr. Lana, specialist gerontologist, where we talk on all things on living agelessly, bridging generational gaps, family caregiving, entrepreneurship, and just life itself. So, welcome back. And remember to share, like, and share this with a friend because it helps to just get that information out there. There's so much on aging, there's so much on dementia, there's so much uncertainty, there's so much on family caregiving. When we work together and we spread the word, it really makes a difference. So kick that like, that subscribe button, take that thumbs up button, if you like, and just tell a friend. Just tell a friend. So, what we're going to talk about today? Hearing. Why hearing? Because we often forget so many things. Everyone, we tend to think about, yes, our five senses, or six, if you want to call it: sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste. Okay. All of those are changed in aging in different degrees. But the two that I'm very, very closely connected with: brain impairment, cognitive impairment, memory impairment, and also the progression of dementia. And that's visual and hearing. Most people, though, will go to the optician, the ophthalmologist, get the glasses checked. If they have cataract, they'll get that checked. They'll adjust that. They'll go to the specialist, the optometrist, get the glasses sorted. But very few, very few. And there is a stigma on, impaired hearing. And trust me, in the Caribbean, people don't want you to think that they have a hearing problem. And older ones, especially, you know what I'm talking about. Family givers, you know what I'm talking about. They refuse the hearing aid. And yet they're saying, pardon, what? Huh? And it's driving you bonkers, right? Okay. But it's more sinister than that. And it's more subtle than that. And it's more serious than that. So I wanted to focus on the link, believe it or not, between poor hearing and cognitive impairment, cognitive decline, progression of dementia. And I mean, it's something that we can actually address as much as we can. So, we can't cure it. But if there's something that we can help, by all means, let's talk about it. So here we go straight into it. Well, with so many persons, let's just talk about general statistics, shall we? Of the persons who are generally, this is in literature, 70 years and over, there is already significant hearing loss. Some say 60%, some say 70%. In adults over 70, there's some form of hearing loss. And that's for so many reasons, because the bones stop vibrating in our ear as much, the conduction, the the vibration of our eardrum, the accent, there might be blockage, changes in the shape of the ear, noise effects, um, just extraneous and outside noise can come to an ear that's not working very well and just sound like confusion. And then that's just the outer and middle. The inner ear now, which is really coming from the brain, that has its own kettle of fish, and that deals with the sensation, transmission of the noise, the sound that you hear. And then the brain's hearing center now has to process that and bring it back to make sense of it, to hear what was said, and to process and to answer appropriately. It is a very complex mechanism. And that is why there's no one size fits all. But we're talking mainly about seeing what we can do and how hearing loss, deprivation of hearing, impedes understanding. And it may seem as if your loved one has suddenly declined or is declining. And when really and truly, a simple hearing assistance or a hearing check, or you know what, sometimes, many times, just wax impaction And many times you syringe the air, wax comes out, and the person can hear you and they understand you, and they were not declining as you thought they were. And it seems like a miracle. So I'm saying is, don't take our hearing for granted. None of us really should. But specifically, we're going from 70s onward. Okay, so 60 to 70% of those over 70 already have some form of hearing loss. And that increases to exponentially to those who are when you reach 90. Hmm. Oh, the numbers just can go up from, again, from more than two-thirds, so not 70% to 90% of those over 90 have a hearing difficulty of some part. And it can be from any one of those factors that I had mentioned. But we want to talk about the good news part today. And so, when last question, did you actually, you personally have a hearing test? Anyone in my group, you family caregivers, have you had a hearing check recently? Have you thought about getting your loved one to have a hearing test? Going not to the specialist or anything, maybe just going to your GP and say, Doc, can you check the ears for me? See if there's wax buildup. See if we use the tuning fork to check, to test for hearing. There are formal tests for hearing. We do the minor ones, the specialist ones are there, true. But it's a very simple check that we can do. Look in the ears, test for the vibration, test for the sound. Ask questions, go in different volumes. And so you can see if there might be a change, and then you can send them on to the specialist if necessary. Most persons, like 80 and 90, they expect to not hear well, but it's very frustrating because it stops communication. Here's why it's important. Because imagine you're in a room, you're not hearing well, you're an older person, a whole set of persons are around you, or you might just be used to looking at your favorite television program, or someone's talking to you, or you're on the phone, or the neighbor is talking to you from across, and you normally had a great conversation, and suddenly you're not hearing, or you go to family gatherings, and everyone is like talking around you, and you just you can see the withdrawal. Why? Because you're not hearing them well. You may not be hearing from one ear better than you may be hearing from one ear better than the other, but you're always asking to repeat and repeat. And persons, yes, well, you do get tired of someone who's you say something and it's repeating and repeating. You get tired of repeating yourself as well, and sometimes, especially if you are cognitively impaired and it's early stages, you might not even remember what it was you had asked. So it's frustrating. So, and it's a global impaction. It affects relationships. It really spoils the mood, and it can be sorted. For most of it can be sorted. So let's see what we can do. Why so you're in the room? The noise is there. Confusion is there. Everything sounds like blah or bzz, and different frequencies affect different persons. Mind you, it's a misnomer that when older persons don't hear well, we speak up. No, that actually makes it worse because the vibration is low. It's more like a drum roll as opposed to more more clarity. So we tone our voice down, speak, go close, speak to them, enunciate our words, let them see us talking, and then you can see the clarity coming. So you can see why it would contribute to cognitive impairment. You can see why it would make it seem as though dementia is getting worse. You can see why the social isolation happens because if no one can hear you, no one can understand you, you can't hear anybody. You don't understand what they're saying because you can't hear them. A lot of older persons really would want to talk, but they're ashamed to say, I can't hear you well. There's so much pride in it, many times. And we want to take away that stigma and that ego really just so you can hear, so that your brain can then process. And what was thought to be so much of a serious mental problem, dementia problem, impairment problem, is not as much as you thought, because hey, it was just because they weren't hearing. So again, just saying, it's biological aging, there's abnormal aging, but most of the time it's just aging from poor hearing loss from aging. And that can sometimes be fixed by what we call an amplifier. It doesn't have to be a formal hearing aid with all this, they're so discreet now, but it does have to be a formal hearing aid. Many sites sell what we call amplifiers, and you can use them in when you go to public spaces, it and tune it to what you want. It makes conversation easier. We still want to maintain that we don't want a whole set of persons in a huge gathering. That is overwhelming for older persons, overwhelming for most people. So bear in mind, hearing, speech, and sound are all connected. Processing of what is said in order to make sense of what is said, in order to respond, in order to have a conversation, in order to have social connection, you need to be able to hear. So this is really just a plug for one, identifying the fact that hearing loss, so you can see why. If you can't hear, your brain will be confused. It can't pass the message on. It might be mistaken as dementia, decline, and everybody starts to get worried. And it may just be as simple as, doc, check my ears. Doc, do I need a hearing aid? And that person will be able to tell you. Or do I need to just see the specialist and maybe they can recommend something? There's so many different little ways that we can, if we can address it and fix, we can. And hearing is definitely one of those. And I've seen it make such a difference when the person's like, I didn't know I was missing out on all this conversation. And the family member's like, well, I thought she was really going down, but she can hear us now. Hey, don't let pride get in the way of you being able to hear, communicate with your family, communicate with your friends, and just stay in the social scene. Depression, isolation, social isolation is demoralizing, especially as you get older when you really need persons around you to rally. And it is frustrating as a family caregiver, and it can be so much better because you can communicate with them better. And then we all have, I don't want to sound trite, but we want to have a happy life. And everybody wants to be able to smile. So, hey, don't let pride get in the way. Chat with a doctor, get your hearing checked. If a hearing aid is required or an amplifier is required, it's as simple as just checking it out, and it makes for better conversation. It makes for better social interaction, better family interdynamics, better caregiving, living agelessly, and more independence as you get older, because you don't have to always be what, huh, and you can get permission to drive as well, as long as everything else is okay, as long as your hearing is intact. So if we can maintain our independence as long as possible, who can say no to that? From my heart to yours, Dr. Lana, get your hearing checked. Everybody, but especially older ones, don't back away. Get it to, well, not tomorrow, today, but as soon as possible. Let me know how it worked for you. From my heart to yours, good morning, good evening, good night. Mwah.